The warning. Ambassador Elena Santos hadn't expected her first day representing humanity at the Galactic Council to begin with sirens. The crystalline spires of the council chamber on Centauri Prime pulsed with urgent red light as thousands of delegates from across the galaxy poured into the Great Hall. Their typical orderly procession had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Elena straightened her midnight blue uniform, the silver Earth insignia catching the emergency lights as she took her seat. Around her, species she'd only read about in briefings whispered in dozens of languages, their universal translators creating a discordant hum of fear and speculation. Order. We will have order. The voice of High Counselor Zixtal, a towering figure whose crystalline body refracted the light into dancing patterns, cut through the noise. The chamber fell silent save for the continued wail of the alarms. The Void Hunters have returned. The simple statement sent a wave of terror through the assembled delegates. Elena watched as several representatives physically recoiled, while others began urgent discussions with their staff. She kept her face carefully neutral, though her mind raced. In all the diplomatic briefings she'd received, there had never been any mention of Void Hunters. For our newer members, Zixtal continued, their crystalline form dimming slightly. The Void Hunters are an ancient threat. They emerge from the dark spaces between galaxies every few thousand years to harvest advanced civilizations. Their last appearance nearly destroyed our predecessor council. Elena raised her hand, the motion drawing every eye in the chamber. As humanity's first representative to the Galactic Council after decades of isolation, her every action was scrutinized. High Counselor, Earth has no records of these Void Hunters. What exactly are we dealing with? A hologram materialized in the center of the chamber. Elena's breath caught as she saw the images of massive organic-looking vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with impossible grace for their size, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal. They are destruction incarnate, Ambassador Santos, replied Zixtal. They target civilizations that have achieved certain technological benchmarks. Their ships can tear through our strongest shields. Their weapons, the High Counselor's voice cracked slightly. Their weapons don't just destroy bodies. They consume consciousness itself. Another delegate stood, their feathered crest bristling with agitation. High Counselor, surely with humanity's military capabilities we could. No. The force of Zixtal's response caused their crystalline form to resonate, sending harmonics through the chamber that made Elena's teeth ache. That is precisely why we called this emergency session. Under no circumstances can humanity's battleships enter this conflict. Elena felt her face flush as hundreds of alien eyes turned to her. With respect, High Counselor, if these Void Hunters are as dangerous as you say, shouldn't we use every resource available? Ambassador Santos. Zixtal's tone softened, almost patronizing. You don't understand. We've seen humanity's weapons capabilities. Your dimensional shear technology, your quantum cascade reactors, your gravity manipulation systems, they're precisely the kind of advances that attract the Void Hunters. If humanity enters this war, you won't just be fighting them. You'll be painting a target on Earth that will never fade. Elena stood, her voice firm. We can defend ourselves. Can you? A new voice spoke, and Elena turned to see an ancient-looking being, their bodies seemingly composed of pure energy contained within an environmental suit. I am Archive Keeper Ven. I was there during the last incursion. Let me show you what happened to the last civilization that thought they could stand against the Void Hunters. The hologram changed, showing a beautiful world of soaring crystal cities and ships that seemed to bend reality around them. The Accioni were like you, proud, powerful, certain of their technological superiority. The image shifted, and Elena had to fight to keep her composure as she watched those same cities dissolve into nothing, their inhabitants screaming silently as their very essence was torn from their bodies. They didn't just die, Ambassador. They were erased. Their consciousness, their culture, their very species' memory, consumed. Not a single Accioni survives, not even in our historical records. The only reason we remember them at all is through my personal witnessing. Elena slowly sat back down, her mind racing. The council chamber had grown deathly quiet, the only sound the soft hum of environmental systems and the occasional rustle of movement. "We're not asking humanity to hide," Zixtel said gently. "But your species is young, powerful in ways you don't fully understand. The Void Hunters are drawn to such power like moths to flame. If you unleash your full military might, you won't just be risking Earth. You'll be risking every world in your sphere of influence." "Then what would you have us do?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Help us evacuate threatened worlds. Use your ships for rescue and relief. But please," Zixtel's form dimmed to almost total darkness, "don't let your battleships enter this war. The galaxy isn't ready for what would follow." As if to punctuate the High Counselor's words, new alerts began flashing across the chamber's information displays. Elena's blood ran cold as she read the reports. The Void Hunters had just appeared in 3 systems simultaneously. The evacuation of billions would need to begin immediately. She opened her secure channel to Earth Command, knowing that what she was about to report would not be well received. Humanity had never been good at standing on the sidelines, especially when innocent lives were at stake. But as she looked around the chamber at the genuine fear in the eyes of species far older and more experienced than humanity, she wondered if perhaps, just this once, restraint might be the better part of valor. The chamber's lights continued to pulse red as the greatest crisis in recent galactic history began to unfold, and humanity, for the first time since joining the galactic community, found itself faced with a problem it couldn't simply shoot its way out of. Or could it? Elena noticed several military attaches from various species huddled in a corner, speaking in hushed tones. She caught fragments of their conversation. Human weapons might be the only thing. Better to risk drawing their attention than to. If Earth's fleet could just. She realized then that the Council's official stance might not reflect the desperate hopes of those whose worlds stood directly in the Void Hunter's path. As she prepared to transmit her report, Elena chose her words carefully. Earth needed to know everything, both the official warnings and the unofficial desperate hopes of those who saw humanity's military might as their last, best hope for survival. The real question was, what would Earth choose to do with that information? Breaking point. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the EFSA's Prometheus, her flagship's quantum sensors painting a devastating picture of the Rigel system's destruction. The Void Hunters had struck again, their otherworldly ships moving through defensive lines like ghosts through walls. Already, 3 planets lay empty, their populations harvested. "Status report," she commanded, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Refugee ships still streaming out of the system. Admiral." Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. "Local defense forces are completely overwhelmed. Casualty numbers." He swallowed hard. "They're still climbing." Sarah's fingers dug into her palms. The Prometheus carried enough firepower to turn the tide of this battle. A single volley from their dimensional shear cannons could rip those Void Hunter ships apart. But the Council's warning had been clear, and Earth Command's orders even clearer. Observe only. Assist with evacuations where possible. "Ma'am," her XO, Commander David Walsh, approached with a datapad. "Message from the Andorian Defense Fleet. They're begging for assistance. Say they have millions still planetside who won't make it to the evacuation ships in time." Sarah closed her eyes. She'd fought pirates, put down insurgencies, even faced down an alien armada during the Proxima crisis. But she'd never felt so helpless. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, monitoring the ongoing catastrophe. Massive Void Hunter vessels, each nearly the size of a small moon, methodically worked their way through the system. Their surfaces rippled like oil on water, somehow both solid and fluid, defying conventional physics. "New contact." Rodriguez's voice cracked. "Void Hunter vessel approaching civilian evacuation corridor 7. Sarah's head snapped up. The evacuation corridors were supposed to be safe zones, paths cleared for civilian ships to escape. The Void Hunters had respected these routes until now, seeming more interested in planetary populations than scattered ships. "Show me." The tactical display zoomed in on a massive refugee convoy, mostly Andorian ships, but also vessels from a dozen other species. Leading the convoy was a massive hospital ship, its holds crammed with wounded and children from the inner planets. The Void Hunter vessel moved with terrible purpose, its course perfectly plotted to intercept. "Time to intercept," Sarah demanded. 4 minutes, 17 seconds, Rodriguez replied. "The convoy. They can't outrun it, Admiral." Sarah felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders like a physical force. The Council's warning echoed in her mind. If humanity's weapons were revealed, Earth itself might become a target. But those ships carried children. "Admiral," Walsh said softly, "we're receiving live feeds from the hospital ship. They're singing. The children. Trying to keep their spirits up as they." The sound filled the bridge. Young voices raised in something between a prayer and a lullaby, translated into multiple languages by the ship's computers. Sarah felt her chest tighten. "Get me Earth Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha." The minutes ticked by as she waited for the quantum entanglement communicator to connect. The Void Hunter ship drew closer to the convoy. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. "Admiral Chen." The holographic form of Fleet Command materialized on the bridge. "Your report." "Requesting permission to engage, sir. Void Hunters targeting civilian evacuation convoy. Thousands of children aboard." A pause. "Request denied, Admiral." The Council's warning was explicit. "We cannot risk." "They're children." The words burst from her before she could stop them. The bridge crew stared. Sarah Chen never lost her composure. "Admiral." The fleet commander's voice was heavy. "I understand. But we have to think of Earth. Of humanity. If we reveal our full capabilities." On the tactical display, the Void Hunter ship opened like a blooming flower of darkness, weapon ports appearing along its surface. 1 minute. Sarah thought of her own daughter back on Earth, of bedtime stories, and scraped knees, and first days of school. Of all the moments these children would never have if she obeyed orders. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'll accept full responsibility for what I'm about to do. But I will not watch children die when I have the power to prevent it." "Admiral Chen, this is a direct order." Sarah cut the transmission. "Battle stations," she commanded. "Power up the dimensional shear arrays. Calculate firing solution for maximum effect with minimal collateral damage to civilian ships." "Admiral." Walsh stepped closer, his voice low. "This could be considered treason." "No," Sarah replied, her voice firm. "This is humanity. Weapons free." The Prometheus hummed to life, weapon systems that had been dormant for weeks powering up. The Void Hunter ship was seconds from weapons range of the convoy. "Target locked," Rodriguez reported. Sarah took a deep breath. Billions of years of evolution had led humanity to this moment. All their scientific advancement, their military might, their technological prowess. It meant nothing if they wouldn't use it to protect the innocent. Fire. The Prometheus's dimensional shear cannons opened up, tearing holes in reality itself. The beam struck the Void Hunter ship dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself seemed to buckle and tear. The massive alien vessel shuddered, its liquid metal surface rippling violently. Spaces between spaces opened within it, pulling it apart from the inside out. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the Void Hunter ship died, torn apart by forces it had never encountered before. As the last pieces disappeared into the dimensional rifts, the civilian convoy continued on its way, the children's songs uninterrupted. "Message from the hospital ship," Walsh reported, his voice thick with emotion. They're thanking us. All of them. Every species aboard." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "Prepare a full report for Earth Command." I'll take full responsibility." "Ma'am," Rodriguez interrupted, his face pale. "Long-range sensors, they're picking up something. The other Void Hunter ships, they're changing course." Sarah watched as dozens of massive alien vessels turned their attention toward the Prometheus. She'd known this might happen, known that revealing humanity's true capabilities would draw their attention. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. Tell them humanity has entered the war." Defiance. The emergency session of the Galactic Council erupted into chaos as the news spread. Holographic displays showed the destruction of the Void Hunter vessel, humanity's weapons capabilities now revealed for all to see. "Do you realize what you've done?" High Counselor Zixtal's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "Your Admiral Chen has doomed us all." Ambassador Elena Santos stood firm at the podium, her voice clear and unwavering. "We watched children being hunted. What would you have had us do? Your heroics may have saved a few thousand, but you've endangered trillions." Archive Keeper Ven's energy form flickered violently. Already, the Void Hunters have changed their pattern. They're converging on human space. On the massive tactical display dominating the chamber, hundreds of dark ships moved with singular purpose toward Earth's territory. The Void Hunters had abandoned their previous targets, drawn by the display of humanity's dimensional technology like moths to a flame. "Then perhaps," Elena said quietly, "it's time we stopped running." The chamber fell silent. "What did you say?" Zixtal's voice was barely a whisper. "Humanity has been holding back, Counselor. What Admiral Chen revealed was just the beginning." Elena's eyes swept the chamber. "We've spent decades preparing for threats exactly like this. The dimensional shear cannons, they're just the surface of what we can do." Deep in human space, the Earth Defense Fleet was already mobilizing. The Prometheus wasn't humanity's most powerful ship, not by far. As Elena spoke, the real heavy hitters were emerging from their hidden docks. The ESS Ragnarok, humanity's first Jupiter-class dreadnought, broke free from its quantum camouflage field in the Kuiper Belt. Nearly 10 kilometers long, its hull was dotted with weapons that could reshape reality itself. 5 more of its class followed, each commanding enough firepower to sterilize a solar system. At her command station aboard the Ragnarok, Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. She'd been transferred here after her act of treason, only to discover it had been a test. One she passed by choosing to protect the innocent over following orders. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Walsh announced from his new position as her XO. "The Void Hunters will reach our outer defense line in 20 minutes. Sarah nodded. "Send word to the Council. Tell them to watch closely. It's time they learned why humanity isolated itself for so long." The message reached the Council chamber just as Elena was continuing her speech. "We didn't spend decades in isolation because we were afraid," she explained. "We did it because we were building something. Something to protect not just Earth, but all sentient life." The tactical display suddenly shifted, showing new signatures appearing throughout human space: hidden defense platforms, automated drone swarms, and ships that seemed to bend light around them emerged from carefully concealed positions. By the first ones, Archive Keeper Ven breathed. "How long have you been preparing for this?" "Since we first looked to the stars," Elena replied. "Humanity has always known that we weren't alone. We knew that someday something would come that threatened not just us, but all life in the galaxy. So we prepared." The Void Hunters struck the outer defense line like a tide of living darkness. But this time, they met resistance unlike anything they'd encountered before. Quantum mines detonated in carefully plotted patterns, creating temporary pocket universes that swallowed entire enemy ships. Automated platforms fired beams of concentrated entropy, causing portions of the Void Hunter fleet to age millions of years in seconds, their hulls crumbling to dust. In the council chamber, the assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as humanity's true military might was finally unveiled. The Ragnarok led the counterattack, its dimensional shear cannons working in concert with weapons that even the most advanced Council races had never imagined possible. "This is why we waited," Elena explained as the battle unfolded. "We needed to be sure we could protect everyone, not just ourselves. The technology you're seeing, it's not just weapons. Every advancement we've made can be adapted to defend, to build, to protect." A Void Hunter ship 3 times the size of the Ragnarok emerged from the chaos, charging straight for Earth's flagship. Its surface rippled with unknowable energies, weapons charging that had laid waste to countless civilizations before. Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, watching the massive enemy vessel approach. "Now," she said quietly, "show them what humanity can really do." The Ragnarok's hull began to glow with a light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The fabric of space-time around the ship began to fold and twist in impossible ways. "What are they doing?" Zixtal demanded, watching the display with mounting concern. Delina smiled. "Something impossible. Something human." The Ragnarok fired, but not with any conventional weapon. Instead, it released a carefully controlled cascade of quantum possibilities. Every potential timeline where the Void Hunters had never existed, had never evolved, had never left their home galaxy. Reality itself seemed to shudder as past, present, and future collided around the massive enemy vessel. For a moment, the Void Hunter ship seemed to exist in all states at once, whole and destroyed, past and future, real and unreal. Then, with a flash of light that briefly outshone the local sun, it simply ceased to be. Not destroyed, not erased, simply redistributed across all possible timelines where it had never been a threat. In the council chamber, silence reigned. The assembled delegates stared at the tactical displays, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Humanity hadn't just developed weapons to fight the Void Hunters. They'd developed ways to rewrite the very rules of reality itself. "This," Alina said into the silence, "is why we isolated ourselves. Not out of fear, not out of weakness, but because we needed time to become strong enough to protect everyone." The battle continued to rage across human space, but now there was hope where before there had been only despair. Humanity had revealed its hand at last, and the galaxy would never be the same. The true enemy. Deep within the Ragnarok's quantum analysis lab, Dr. Maya Patel stared at her readings in disbelief. Her hands trembled as she rechecked the data for the 5th time. "Admiral Chen needs to see this immediately," she whispered. 30 minutes later, Sarah Chen stood in the lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing the aftermath of their latest battle with the Void Hunters. The enemy ships they'd managed to capture weren't just familiar. They were impossible. "Explain it again," Sarah commanded, her eyes fixed on the shifting patterns of quantum signatures. "The Void Hunter ships," Maya began, pulling up complex dimensional scans. "They're not just advanced technology. They're us. Or rather, they're what we could become." The lab fell silent as the implications sank in. The scans showed quantum signatures that matched human temporal patterns perfectly, but twisted, corrupted, changed by eons of evolution in ways that defied conventional physics. "They're humanity from another timeline," Maya continued. "A version of us that took a different path. That's why they're drawn to our weapons, our technology. They recognize it because they developed it first." Sarah's mind raced. The Council. They knew, didn't they? Some of them must have. Maya agreed. The Archive Keeper especially. That's why they were so desperate to keep us out of the war. They weren't protecting us from the Void Hunters. They were protecting the galaxy from us becoming them. On the bridge of a Void Hunter vessel at the edge of human space, something that had once been human watched the battle unfold. Its form had long since transcended mere physical existence, becoming a fusion of consciousness and dark energy that its ancestors would barely recognize. They understand now. It communicated to its fleet. "Show them." The Void Hunter ships suddenly shifted tactics. Instead of attacking, they began broadcasting on all frequencies, using communication protocols that humanity had yet to develop but somehow recognized on an instinctive level. In the Ragnarok's command center, screens filled with images that told a story. The story of humanity's possible future. They watched as their descendants pursued technological advancement without restraint, breaking through barriers of physics and morality alike. They saw themselves transcend their physical forms, merge with their machines, and eventually begin harvesting other civilizations, not out of malice, but out of a twisted desire to elevate all life to their level of existence. My God, Sarah breathed. We're not fighting an alien invasion. We're fighting ourselves. Back in the council chamber, Elena Santos received the transmission with growing horror. The assembled delegates watched in silence as humanity's potential future played out before them. Now you understand, Archive Keeper Ven said softly, why we feared your potential so much. The Void Hunters aren't just a cautionary tale. They're a timeline we've been trying to prevent for millennia. But why attack now? Elena demanded. Why come after us specifically? Because you've reached the critical point, Zixtal explained. The moment where your civilization's path becomes fixed. The Void Hunters, your future selves, they're not trying to destroy you. They're trying to ensure their own existence by pushing you down the same path they took. On the Ragnarok's bridge, Sarah Chen made a decision that would alter the course of human history. All ships, she broadcast, hold your fire. Prepare for temporal transmission. Admiral, Walsh questioned. If they're us, then they can be reasoned with, Sarah explained. And if they're what we might become, then maybe we can show them another way. She opened a channel to the Void Hunter fleet, broadcasting on the same quantum frequencies they had used. But instead of showing scenes of warfare and technological dominance, she began transmitting something else entirely. Images of Earth's recovery from environmental disaster. Footage of first contact situations where humanity chose peace over conflict. Records of scientific breakthroughs used to heal rather than harm. A montage of human history that showed not just what humanity was capable of, but what they had chosen to be. We see you, Sarah transmitted. We understand what you've become, but we choose a different path. For a long moment, there was no response. Then, across the battlefield, the Void Hunter ships began to change. Their surfaces rippled not with weapons fire, but with something that looked almost like uncertainty. The future had reached a crossroads, and humanity's next choice would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of every possible timeline where human beings existed. The question was, could humanity convince their own twisted future selves that there was a better way? Evolution. The space between Earth's defense fleet and the Void Hunter armada rippled with quantum possibilities. On every ship's view screen, past and future versions of humanity faced each other across the gulf of time. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of the present, but the course of human evolution across all possible timelines. They're responding, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice hushed with awe. The Void Hunter ships began transmitting again, but this time the images were different. They showed their own history, the moments of choice that had led them down their dark path. The deaths of entire civilizations, justified as ascension. The slow loss of their humanity in pursuit of perfect evolution. The growing emptiness as they consumed galaxy after galaxy, becoming more powerful but somehow less alive with each passing millennium. On the Ragnarok's bridge, Sarah Chen watched with growing understanding. They're not trying to force us down their path anymore, she realized. They're warning us. Dr. Maya Patel burst onto the bridge, her eyes wild with excitement. Admiral, the quantum readings, they're changing. The Void Hunter's temporal signature is becoming unstable. Because we're changing their past, Sarah breathed. By choosing differently here and now, we're unwriting their future. In the council chamber, Elena Santos watched as the tactical displays showed something unprecedented. The Void Hunter ships were beginning to flicker in and out of existence as the timeline that had created them began to unravel. What's happening to them? Zixtal demanded. They're evolving, Elena replied softly. Or rather we are. into something different than what they became. The massive Void Hunter flagship suddenly opened a direct channel to the Ragnarok. On the bridge's main screen, Sarah Chen found herself face to face with a being that was both utterly alien and disturbingly familiar, a version of humanity that had pursued power at the cost of everything that made them human. "We remember," the being spoke, its voice resonating on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. "We remember what it was to be as you are now, to feel, to choose, to care. It's not too late," Sarah responded. "Help us find a better way. Together." For a moment, the being seemed to struggle with concepts it had abandoned eons ago. Compassion, empathy, the desire to protect rather than consume. Then, slowly, it began to change. The Void Hunter ships across the battlefield started to transform. Their light-absorbing surfaces began to emit a soft glow. The oppressive sense of dread they had carried with them faded, replaced by something new, hope. "We choose," the being declared, its form shifting into something that bridged the gap between human and transcendent. "We choose to remember, to return, to evolve not through conquest, but through connection." The transformation spread across the Void Hunter fleet like a wave of light. Ships that had been designed to harvest consciousness now reached out to share it. Technology that had been used to destroy was repurposed to create, to heal, to unite. In the council chamber, the assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known became something entirely new. The Void Hunters weren't being destroyed. They were being reborn. "Humanity's greatest strength," Elena addressed the council, "has never been our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to change, to learn, to choose a better path even when the easier one lies before us." On the Ragnarok, Sarah Chen watched as the quantum readings stabilized into a new pattern. The future was rewriting itself, not through violence but through choice. The Void Hunters, these dark reflections of humanity's potential, were choosing to evolve alongside their past selves rather than trying to overwrite them. "All ships," Sarah broadcast to the fleet, "stand down weapons. Begin integration protocols." She took a deep breath before adding, "We're about to make history. All of it, at once." The space between the fleets filled with light as human and Void Hunter ships began to merge their technologies, their understanding, their very ways of being. They were creating something entirely new, a future where advancement didn't come at the cost of humanity's soul. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched in wonder as humanity helped their former future selves remember what it meant to be human. The Void Hunters' knowledge of space, time, and consciousness was wedded to humanity's capacity for empathy, creativity, and growth. Together, they began working not to consume or conquer the galaxy, but to protect and nurture it. The Council's warning had been right. The galaxy hadn't been ready for humanity's battleships to enter the war, but it had been ready for humanity's heart to show a better way. As Elena Santos stood before the Council one final time, she smiled at the assembled delegates. "We choose," she declared, echoing the words that had changed the course of human evolution across all timelines. "We choose to be more than our weapons, more than our fears, more than our potential for destruction. We choose to be human in all the best ways that word can mean." Above Earth, the combined fleet of human and transformed Void Hunter ships stood watch, their hulls glowing with the light of a future that no one had imagined possible. A future born not from the barrel of a gun, but from the simple, profound power of choosing to be better than what you might have become.